there's yet again another speaker that they announced when it comes to Dfinity. And of course, this is regarding the World Computer Day event. Now, nothing I say is financial advice. When it comes to having more speakers being added, like for instance, in this case, there's a speaker named Philip. And I think this right here just adds more validation, I think, to the event. They're planning to do it in Switzerland in January of 2026. And the thing is, when it comes to something like this, I think that, again, this does add more validation because if, let's say, for instance, if we take a look at Philip, he's had supposedly a pretty extensive resume. He holds master's degrees from the University of Zurich and the University of Basel. And yeah, I take a look at that. That's pretty impressive to me. When it comes to something like, let's say, in the case of, Dfinity, when they put out events, I think sometimes it means something, right? And also, if I take a look at this event, it's like focused on kind of the AI sort of vibes, at least from what I can see. So I do find it pretty interesting. If we take a look at just the track record overall for this event so far, we take a look at Philip, of course, which is the most recent announcement, but we also see Dr. Verena, which I even talked about in one of my previous videos. And keep in mind, at Meta, she did launch something and scaled something called Open Loop. So that is, I think, pretty impressive in and of itself. And not to mention, before that even, I also made a video talking about Professor Tolius, professor at Stanford University. I have some friends who go to Stanford and went to Stanford, but besides that point, I also take a look at, for instance, Professor Andreas Tolius, right? He has degrees from Cambridge, in which he holds a bachelor's and also a master's, and actually has a PhD from MIT, which I also have some friends who went to MIT, but besides that point, when I take a look at something like Professor Andreas Tolius, also pretty impressive, right? And even before that as well, we saw Anne-Marie Buzatu. I made a video on that as well. And yeah, I also take a look at, for instance, in the case of Dr. Alex. Dr. Alex is a professor as well. And the thing is, we take a look at what he did, for instance, at MIT, right? So when I take a look at something like that, again, Dr. Alex, or should I say Professor Alex, and he's a member of faculty at both Stanford and MIT. When I take a look at just this event overall, I think it's shaping up to be something that's a little bit more than just for fun or just something that's treated as a kind of joke, because I don't think that is the case. If I take a look at some other projects out there putting events, it's not really being treated seriously, but this one seems to be treated seriously to me. I also take a look at just kind of the strides overall that Dfinity is making in terms of caffeine AI and all this. So when I take a look at all this, I think this does put a good start to hopefully 2026 in terms of fundamentals. In terms of price, I mean, a lot of projects out there, they just don't have any control over that in my perspective, right? If that was the case, then why are many projects out there reaching new all-time lows? You know what I mean? Why would a project even want that to begin with? Right? This is just my perspective. Like, it's not even a low for this year. Some projects out there are surpassing lows that they have never ever seen before in history. So we got to think about that, right? It's like even lower than in some cases back where they were in 2020. Like literally around 5 years ago, almost to this point, right? We're nearing 2026. So the thing is, why would a project want that? I think sometimes a project just doesn't have control over that. So I'm totally aware that ICP is just around $3. It's still a long ways away from 100. I mean, it's still over 30 times over than that. But in the meantime, when I take a look at something like this, I do find it to be something I guess I'm looking forward to when it comes to this event, because we have to consider not every single professor lives in Switzerland, right? And also, even if some in a make-believe scenario are calling in or just using something to just talk there, right? Like, even that takes effort, right? Because we have to imagine they have all these speakers, allegedly, they're going to be speaking in this event. A lot of them have their own schedule. A lot of them have their own agenda, their own timeline. They also have jobs. You know what I mean? They also have things to do. Some of these individuals are faculty members at very prestigious universities. And there's a lot of tasks and activities involved with something like that. So when I take a look at something like this event, if it was treated for fun or not being treated seriously, would some of these professors even want to be in this event to begin with in terms of speaking there? That's just kind of the mindset that I have. I know that I personally, if I was like a professor and I didn't find the event to be anything fascinating, I wouldn't want to be speaking there, right? But I'm not a professor, but this is just a make-believe scenario. But if I actually found the event to be worthwhile, right? If I found it to be interesting, then yeah, I would. This is kind of my perspective. So overall, when I take a look at, Dfinity, I guess this is the most relevant thing they've done as of late. I mean, of course, I think throughout this year, the most relevant thing so far is kind of like Caffeine AI, but really, I think like in recent times, the most relevant thing so far is this event, which, I'll see what happens when it comes to it, but so far, it does seem to be pretty interesting to me. Like, I don't think it's going to be a concert or anything like that. Like, it's not going to be something that is like, I guess treated as a for fun type of thing, but this is more so just, a serious sort of event in my perspective, like more so something that is kind of, I guess, more for building relationships and kind of just, I guess, talking more about AI related things. So yeah, when I take a look at this, it is what it is. I wouldn't say I would complain about it because they are treating it seriously. Now, if the event was not being treated seriously, then okay, that's a different case. But it seems like it's being treated seriously to me. Dfinity to me, right, doesn't have a track record of doing stuff like that is just for fun or just random like that, and they don't really care about it. Some other projects out there, they do have a little bit of a track record like that. But in this case, it just doesn't seem like it has that vibe, personally, in my perspective. Now, ultimately, though, I can't really do anything about ICP currently because it is what it is, right? Like, I can't randomly do something to make it do this or do that. But really, at the same time, if let's say I am able to hypothetically dollar cost average into ICP at $3, like, it's not a situation in which I would be complaining like so much because the way I take a look at it was I actually saw around $18 like, just last year, right? Now the thing is this. If let's say ICP does not experience an altcoin season for whatever reason, let's say there's no altcoin season. If for whatever reason it just goes back to the sentiment it had at one point in 2024, so what? At that point, it was around $18, right? Right now we're around $3. This is just my perspective. We're around 6 times lower than that. Bitcoin is not over 6 times lower than its all-time high. It's just not. It's never reached like over 150 grand, let alone over 200, 300, 400. You know what I mean, right? But this is just my perspective. When it comes to something like, again, in the case of ICP, it's just around 6 times lower than where it was back in 2024. Now, granted, we're almost in 2026, but this is just my perception. Who knows if we're going to see an altcoin season, but does ICP really need an altcoin season to go to around $18? I saw that not too long ago. That was without an altcoin season. Now, when it comes to 100, there's probably going to be, of course, a need for an altcoin season at that point. But $18, I just saw that like last year. And like that was not even an altcoin season in my perspective. But this is just the way you take a look at it. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But even besides that, I just wanted to make this video talking about ICP and talking about, the event, or should I say the World Computer Day event, which is allegedly going to be happening in 2026, January 20th. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. I hope you all have a very happy New Year's, depending on when you watch this, of course. And yeah, I'll be making more updates when it comes to ICP. Thank you for watching.